Good evening and thank you for joining us for another episode of Business PNG. We continue our coverage with the 2019 PNG Investment Week, this time with the 15th UN ESCAP Asia Pacific Business Forum held here in Port Moresby. The United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, or UN ESCAP, recently collaborated with the government of Papua New Guinea and the Papua New Guinea Investment and Promotion Authority to jointly organize the Asia Pacific Business Forum last month in Port Moresby. The forum was also supported by the Business Council of Papua New Guinea, the Papua New Guinea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and was the first ever APBF to be hosted in the region. The forum's theme was Global Goals, Local Opportunities, and under this theme, participants of the forum had the opportunity to discuss the role and responsibilities of business in sustainable development, with a focus on the sustainable solutions business can offer to meet the needs of rural and urban communities alike in Asia and the Pacific. The forum showcased current and future business opportunities in the Pacific and allowed participants an opportunity to hear and meet key decision makers, business leaders and emerging entrepreneurs committed to sustainable development across the Asia and Pacific region. Business PNG conducted several exclusive interviews with participants from across Asia and the Pacific. Thank you, Mr. Lohberger, for your time. Tell us a little bit about solar energy, because that's something that a lot of people in Papua New Guinea are aware of, but they don't understand the technicalities of it all.
Well, solar energy is getting energy from the sun using sunlight to turn it into electricity. And obviously in Papua New Guinea we have a lot of sunlight. It's very bright, very tropical sunshine here. So it's a good resource for PNG because it's actually dropped a lot in price over the last 5 years. We've seen huge price drops in the cost of solar panels and in the cost of batteries. And now solar is looking like the cheapest source of energy going forward, even cheaper than natural gas in some places.
And how does the Papua New Guinean government, feel about solar energy?
The government's very positive about solar energy. They want to encourage it. PNG Power is also developing programs to get more solar energy into our electricity sector, and the private sector is also taking it up very strongly as well. So we see great enthusiasm across all parts of PNG for solar power.
So solar power it's a renewable energy. It's something that renewables is something that Papua New Guinea, the Pacific are interested or encouraged to be using more of that. But the general idea or the general understanding is that solar and the other renewable sources of energy are quite expensive. Is this true?
This was true up until a few years ago, but because China has really embraced solar in a huge way, they've built massive factories and they've rolled out huge solar projects. And the economies of scale that this has produced has really reduced the price of solar power. And we see that every time the global solar power installation size doubles, we see significant price drops of 20-30%. So while you might think solar was expensive, I would encourage you to take another look at the prices because they just keep dropping very fast.
Just a few weeks ago, our government was changed, a transformation of government. We have a new Prime Minister. The previous government were keen on introducing coal to Papua New Guinea and mining it here. The new government, we haven't heard anything yet or their stance on that. What are your the pros and cons of coal? What do you think?
Well, coal is a huge contributor to climate change, and Papua New Guinea is a signer of the Boe Declaration, which all the Pacific nations have resolved to phase out coal and high carbon dioxide energy sources. I don't think coal is a very good fit for Papua New Guinea. We don't have a big enough energy sector here. It's expensive. Coal was cheap if you could develop huge power stations. We're talking hundreds of megawatts, and there's nowhere in PNG that can absorb that. And now with renewable energy being cheaper and dropping in price, I don't see a way through for the coal sector to develop in PNG.
So you would highly discourage that?
I would discourage it for several reasons. Discourage it for environmental reasons. It hurts the climate, and coal gas hurts nature and the oceans and the plants and animals. discourage it for health reasons. It hurts humans. You find that in a lot of communities around the world that have a coal industry, there's a high rate of cancer, high rate of birth defects in young babies and mothers. And I would discourage it for economic reasons as well, because coal is not very flexible. We don't have a domestic coal industry in Papua New Guinea, so any coal that would be burned here would have to be imported from somewhere like Indonesia or Australia. And meanwhile, like, we have great sunshine, we have strong rivers, and we have all sorts of resources that we can use instead.
I think the argument was that there's clean coal and then there's dirty coal, and the coal that they want to mine here is clean coal. Is this a myth?
Look, the coal that they want to mine here, there's a misnomer. A lot of people use the phrase clean coal as if there's some way for coal to be clean, but there's not really. The technical explanation for clean coal is a coal plant where you burn coal and then you siphon off the carbon dioxide from the burning process and you store that underground so it doesn't reach the atmosphere. Now, to build a coal plant like that is very, very expensive, 2 or 3 times more expensive than a normal coal plant, which is what they're proposing for Papua New Guinea, which is in Moresby and a few other locations. So we don't have this clean coal technology here. If we did, it would be a much more expensive exercise than the other types of technology we have access to. The coal that they're proposing to mine from Depot Creek in the Gulf Province, it's not particularly great coal. It's not the worst coal. It's better than brown coal, but it's just typical black coal. It's not too different from where you'd find in Australia or Indonesia or other places. And the mining that they're proposing to do there is not very environmentally sound either. It could create great damage to the surrounding environment. I'd just like to add that Papua New Guinea has great solar power also in development right now. We have in many villages and rural communities around PNG, there's a huge adoption of solar lanterns. So these are people that don't have electricity already. They don't have access to power, and they might be years before PNG power reaches their village, but they were previously either burning firewood for light or using kerosene lanterns. And a lot of these communities have moved to solar power, and it's much cheaper and much cleaner for them. And likewise, on the very top end of the market, we have PNG Power and large companies and large industries like mines and factories investing in solar power as well. And it makes a lot of sense for them, and it's very economic, and they can save money doing that. But in the middle, where the normal Papua New Guineans, they live in cities and towns, and they live in a house, they don't really have access to solar power. So what we need is new policies and regulations that can help these Papua New Guineans, these normal people, working people, middle class, get access to solar, and that's what we're trying to help develop in Papua New Guinea.
I'm Leanne Jurari in Kokopo, and you're watching Business PNG. Thank you, Ms. Young, for your time. Tell us a little bit about sustainable tourism and bringing in SMEs to sort of boost this initiative. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Papua New Guinea, and tourism isn't a sector that the government really tends to. We tend to overlook that sector. So.
Yeah. Okay. I think sustainable tourism has to be defined in different perspectives. Say, for example, one area about how to make the business sustainable in terms of economic returns, and at the same time, we need to have some educational purpose. Say, for example, through tourism, we need to understand about environmental, the educational value to the tourists that coming to visit PNG. And the third level will be about culture, because PNG, they have different like over 1,000 tribes, right? How are we going to use this kind of unique characteristics of the PNG and let people know this is the business model? We combine with 3 things. One will be about the economic impact, that tourism has to be a sustainable business model and with value to the tourists. And the second thing will be embedded with the environmental, like energy or clean water, all those. And the last thing will be, we just mentioned about culture. Beside the 1,000 tribe, the characteristics, or maybe the pattern that they design, I think it's a very good opportunity to raise the awareness that culture and creativity also can be found in New Guinea. So I think that will be about sustainable tourism that the government can be more aware of. Yeah.
You're saying more of a a more of a public-private partnership to really attract tourists and to really promote this industry.
Yeah, so as a school dean, I'm working for Gracia Christian College, and we have two programs. One is about BBA in Service Marketing Management, and one is the higher diploma in Transformative Business Management. The reason why I mention about these two programs is, say for example, if the government want to promote tourism, we need to have capacity building. So that will be bring up about teenagers to engage in the tourism industry through education, so that they will say tourism will be a kind of like professionalism. So if you have a very value added, the curriculum design about services, engage in tourism, and then together with the UN SDGs, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals number 3 about wellness. Say for example, you put yoga into wellness and then engage into New Guinea, that you can come over here to do the yoga conference in New Guinea, and yoga can be empower women as the trainer. So I think that will be fulfill the UN SDGs number 5 about gender equality. And finally, the UN SDG, we have number 17, which is about partnership. So through government have some kind of policy incentive, how we can empower women and also bring wellness into the tourism industry. And then with the education sector, academic, higher education sector, together with some NGOs, say for example, I'm also the Associate Vice President for UNESCO Hong Kong. We promote education, scientific, and also culture. So tourism can be as a tool, as a kind of industry to engage in the 3 things. And the last thing about technology, right, scientific, we can use maybe blockchain and then put the blockchain content distribution into tourism, so that people will know, oh, if you come over here, all the photos, the video, you can upload into a certain platform, and then you can share with others. And the people who upload, they have originality, they have the copyright. So it means that all the travel experience, they are real one that I want to share with others. So I think another kind of blockchain can be also used in tourism industry. Yeah.
Right. I mean, a lot of the things you're talking about sounds really interesting. Technology, blockchain.
Yeah, right.
In Papua New Guinea, though, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to infrastructure.
Yeah, right. Limitations.
Yes, limitations. So how can we, progress with these working, trying to solve these challenges and then, promote.
Right. So the other thing I want to mention is 2 years ago, I also engaged with a tourism project in Indonesia, Jakarta. We through producing a film, because we want to let people know about the Thousand Island can be promoted just like the Bali Island. So how are we going to do that? So we engage with the secondary school student, and then the film director is the university graduate, and then they work together and on the island and let people know what we can do in the island for heritage, for culture. And then finally the film have been launched in the Indonesia last year, and engaging will be with a lot of bankers to draw the attention how to protect the island as a tourism site. So I think will be something like a benchmarking. So if we have some constraint locally in here, say for example, number 1, is it a lot of people want or they don't want to go to tourism industry? Second thing will be about professionalism and standardization. If say for example the hotel, they have some green certification in the hotel, or maybe the people themselves, they have some continual professional development on the people, then more people will be going to engage in the tourism industry, and that will be thinking about more like professional labor force in the industry. And people say that, oh, you work in hospitality, maybe like a brand building, and also you can promote the PNG as a brand destination for the tourists to come over. So a lot of things we need to like a systematic and also holistic to increase the awareness of the PNG, rather than think about, because we are lack of resources. But how we get the resources, it can be through some volunteers, it can be engaged or partnership with some like overseas NGO, UNESCO, or maybe academic sector overseas, and draw the people over here, maybe through exchange or maybe through some kind of overseas internship. So if the government, they are promoting about that kind of policy, incentive, and then we draw the Hong Kong people coming over here to work as a collaboration platform, I think some of the resources or maybe the challenges can be solved. Yeah.
So obviously that will take a lot of fine-tuning with the legislation,
right,
government's legislation.
Yeah.
How can we protect against exploitation? cultural appropriation, misappropriation. How can we, because you mentioned we have 1,000 cultures and tribes, how can we protect against exploitation?
I think number one is the respect. Okay, we understand about diversity, as the Prime Minister just mentioned about that. So we need to highlight that different people have their different mindset, and the mindset and the uniqueness is the thing that we need to respect. Through respect and then inclusive education, inclusive world can bring in new business angle. The reason why I mentioned like this, say for example, we just mentioned about the pattern of maybe African, or the pattern of Muslim, or the pattern of New Guinea. So they can put into different kind of product. If we have an open mindset, we accept others, and that will be a new pattern. Maybe we can put into T-shirt or yoga mat, and then we have more choices for the consumer for the pattern, right? And also we let people know that we can use IP, intellectual property right protection, on the pattern. So through respect about each other, the culture, then put into the business angle that you can use the pattern to produce maybe different kind of product. And finally, the world will become better because everybody get a share through your maybe the pattern, your culture into the product. I think that will be the angle to be like open-minded.
I'm Leanne Durari in Sydney, and you're watching Business PNG.
And you're here talking about the mitigating climate change, and you're from the Vanuatu Chamber of Commerce. Tell us a little bit about what you're here to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. So yes, Sean Gilchrist from the Vanuatu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm up here representing the Chamber and then obviously giving some presentations with respect to what the Chamber is doing. We have a Business Resilience Committee as well, which is responsible for educating and training our general business population with respect to business resilience. So there's been some discussions in respect to what we're doing there. It's actually a regional first that Vanuatu's developed there. So we're very fortunate. So we've been outlining what we are doing and how we're doing it and how we can assist some of the other regional organisations, our partner chambers in the region, to assist their members as well. We're also been providing a bit of background information. So I also own a water bottling business in Vanuatu, and we've been explaining how we're migrating our business from being 100% PET business to hopefully within the next 12 to 24 months a 50-50 split between renewables or refillables and PET.
Okay. So can you briefly tell us a little bit about how Vanuatu is basically, you mentioned that it's, a first what you guys are doing, and you want to bring it, introduce it to the chambers around.
Sure. So very much on the back end of Cyclone Pam, there was a large demand to introduce some level of resilience to businesses. So during my speech today, I made reference back to Cyclone Winston in Fiji, whereas 70% of businesses that were actually affected there didn't recover from the cyclone. And so that's a direct impact on the economy, it's a direct impact onto the government, and obviously flows on to law and order, education, healthcare, and a range of other socially related challenges. So from Vanuatu's perspective, we identified the need to do something around that to ensure that our businesses, and most of our businesses are small and medium, and when we say small and medium, 10 to 50 staff members. So a lot of these businesses don't have the resources, they don't have the departments that are able to research and implement resilience programs. So the idea was to bring it in through the Chamber, to seek external funding, which we're doing through GCF. USAID has been assisting us on that front as well, and the idea is to build up the framework and continue to build the framework here in Vanuatu, and then work through PIPSO, which is our regional organisation, and the various other chambers in the region to assist them to utilise similar processes and procedures to what we're using in Vanuatu where it's relevant.
So the Forum Secretariat have, I think they've not announced, but have suggested a sort of Pacific Resilience Fund. It was supposed to be passed through to the Forum Finance and Economic Ministers.
That's correct.
A month ago, I think. So what are your thoughts on that? Vanuatu as a forum?
Absolutely. So as a forum member, Vanuatu and from the private sector, we're totally behind that approach. It's something that I was at Forum last year and we actually discussed that with the leaders, and primarily on the back end of the effect of cyclones and tsunamis in recent years in our region. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where insurance in some locations, not just in Vanuatu, although we're starting to find it in certain parts of Vanuatu, it's not possible to get insurance in low-lying areas, which is exposing businesses and households. So anything that the governments can do in terms of underwriting those situations, we are right behind. So certainly the Vanuatu Chamber of Commerce and Industry supports Vanuatu's approach and the other forum leaders on this.
Right, okay. In terms, like I said, while I have you here, I'd be remiss not to ask, the Forum Secretariat have also come up with a narrative, the Blue Pacific narrative. What are your thoughts on that? And sort of, not patriotism, but bringing the Pacific together and sort of looking out.
Absolutely. It's interesting you raise this, and the Forum Secretariat's doing an exceptionally good job around that. It's something that was discussed recently at an ILO breakout conference that we were at, which is obviously totally unrelated, and then further on at CAP 3 in Suva. We are, as a region, we are geographically large, but population-wise small. Our two largest neighbours being Australia and New Zealand, far more advanced in terms of their development than what we are. So we do need to work collectively on a lot of these issues, especially on blue-green policies across the board. They are something that individual governments and businesses within this region cannot do alone. So we do, especially from a blue perspective, we need to pool our resources and utilise the best, most talented people and the financial resources that we can to achieve these outcomes. We need to be protecting our fisheries, as we heard earlier today. Something like 70% of tuna stocks, of remaining tuna stocks in the world, are within this region. So we need to be protecting this, not just for now, but for future generations. So absolutely important that we get in behind and support it.
While I have you here again, the Vanuatu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, what is your stance, I guess, on the whole geopolitical push and shove that's happening right now with China coming in, not only to Papua New Guinea, but to the rest of the Pacific, and our traditional partners, Australia, New Zealand, and basically what's happening? What's your...
Sure. Well, look, there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, if we talk about a Vanuatu-centric situation, we are in desperate need and have been in desperate need of core infrastructure projects. By the introduction of, as you say, China's influence to some degree through Belt and Road, that has probably, as we've seen with New Zealand and Australian policy, it's awoken our two largest regional donors, and in Vanuatu's case, historically our two largest donors, who are now probably a little bit more astutely aware of what we require domestically in Vanuatu versus what is perceived from a Canberra or Wellington perspective that's needed. Probably my biggest concern with respect to any of this is the debt to GDP ratios that we're seeing. Vanuatu is in the mid 40% at the moment, and then you take examples like Tonga that are well over 50%. That's very concerning. Now, at this point in time, I can only speak for Vanuatu. We're in a cash surplus situation at the moment. Whilst the domestic economy might be struggling a bit, we've certainly made good inroads in terms of capital from the sales of passports and the likes, permanent residency and citizenship programs. Those won't last forever. And obviously we're very cautious that we need to be able to fund this debt because the reality is it's debt, it's not soft loans or grants, and therefore we need to be very cautious. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's China, whether it's Australia, whether it's the US, we need to be very cautious as small island states, or as we're referred to now, big ocean states, in the way in which we're loaning and utilising that loan money, and ensuring that not only now but future generations are actually able to repay this, and we don't put ourselves into a situation where economically we potentially could sink our countries. But I'm supportive of, I guess, from a business perspective, you'd refer to it as being healthy competition. We've gone from being a duopoly to now we've got a trio of countries bidding for opportunities in the region, and I think economically speaking, that's a very good thing. It's just a matter of each of the individual governments weighing up what's in the best interests of the people and what's economically in the best interests of the country mid to long term.
And that's all we have for this episode of Business PNG. For more information, or if you'd like to view this episode again, visit MTV Online at the URL at the bottom of your screen. Or to simply join the conversation, like our page on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at the Twitter handle at Business PNG. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Leanne Jarari, and this is Business PNG.